Can we get their mics going over here on the dais?
You gonna Kanye me? I'm Taylor.
Oh, that's cool. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to introduce my friend who's moderating this panel. She's been a loyal Silicon Harlemite since the beginning. I've been lucky enough to work with her on developing her own business, which is called Bold. And she has Bold TV and a whole bunch of other things. You see her on MSNBC, you see her on Fox, you see her on television all the time. But what most important is she's one of the great loyal friends of mine and has been very helpful in Silicon Harlem along the way. So this is the great Carrie Sheffield.
Okay, thanks, Clayton. Everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rethinking Communication. Just to get warmed up, I want to get a quick show of hands to get a feel from the industry. How many of you guys work in media? Raise your hand. Anyone? Media, so television, newspaper, digital, intelligent web. Okay, media, good. What about, or I guess that's a content side. What about the marketing, business side of communications, telecom? What about the tech companies? Those ones, the ones that are eating our lunches, yes. Tech company. All right, we got the mix. Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming to this panel on Rethinking Communication. We've got a wonderful, esteemed panel here. I'm excited to tap their brains and just learn myself. And so I'm going to briefly introduce, you can definitely, and I encourage you all to look them up and follow them on social media and see what they're doing, because we've got some really innovative panelists here. So I'll just go through them really quickly here and their bios. Here to my left is David Viviano. He's the chief economist at the Screen Actors Guild, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. He helps negotiate and enforce employment contracts for actors. He also works with performers in both traditional and digital media. So if you want to get to the nitty-gritty of exactly how to get paid, I hope David will be able to share some of insights with us. Next to David is Chirag Shah. He's the founder of Lifestyle Westchester, which is a growing online media company. I think his story will be very interesting for us. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience, and it's a fast-growing website and digital community, over 20,000 followers on social media, 300,000 views on video. So we'll love to get his insights on how he's been able to grow his viral audience. And also next to Chirag is Alex Wolf, who is also incredibly experienced at building a digital web audience. This young woman, you all are lucky that you're in the room with her, because in 10, 15 years, she'll probably be a household name, just so everyone knows. So Alex Wolf, at a very young age, built a digital brand called Boss Babe, which has been very successful and viral, reaching millions of young women. Just really from scratch. And she's also got a book right now called Resonate, and it's looking at just trying to understand human nature and technology together. So she's a keen observer of culture at such a young age. I find her to be very inspiring. And then last but very much not least is Emelyn Stuart, my apologies, Emelyn. And Emelyn is an entrepreneur as well. Her company just launched last month, and we'll hear more about that entrepreneur's journey. It's the first Black Latina to own her independent theater here in New York. Her company will love to hear more about that launch and what she's learned along the way. And thank you so much, all.
Thank you.
So we're going to get into everyone's story, but Emelyn, I want to start with you, given that your company just launched. Tell us how that launch happened, what was all the threads that led to that, and then in particular, you are serving a diverse audience. What advice do you have for our audience to serve minority communities in media?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me, and welcome, everyone. So I just opened my own independent movie theater and cafe in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. So I'm the first Black Latina to own my own movie theater, which is exciting, but also scary. So I am an executive producer of several projects, and I just felt like the theatrical distribution deal wasn't really something that independent filmmakers could really get into, right? There's only a certain number of films that could be played every year. And there's a lot of gatekeepers between the filmmaker and the big theaters. And so I thought one of the ways to get around that and provide more opportunities for minorities especially was to create my own movie theater. And so I couldn't find any investors or partners, which now turned out to be a blessing.
It always is. You own your vision even more.
Yes, yes. And so I am the sole owner, self-financed movie theater in New York. And so that allows me to eliminate some of the gatekeepers and really open opportunities. And with the technology that we have in place, it really allowed me to provide that movie theater environment. So a lot of filmmakers have to use something called DCP to show their films in theaters. That's very expensive. It costs anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 to convert your film to that. So that was pricing out a lot of filmmakers. I'm able to use enhanced 4K projection, 160-inch screen with surround sound and subwoofers and get the same effect. And then they don't have to do that. They can use MP4 files. So the technology where it is today has really enabled me to be able to build this place and provide the same experience and more opportunities. So some of it is the technology, and it was just me wanting to have a solution to my own problem.
Yeah. Well, Emelyn, it's so inspiring that you plowed ahead and believed in your own vision. I just think we should give her another round of applause because it's not easy.
Thank you.
So I also want to ask you about monetizing, because that's something that the creators in the room, what advice do you have for independent filmmakers? Because it's hard. I mean, to be independent, it's really difficult. So what advice do you have on monetizing your content?
So that was one of there's a couple of mandates that I had for myself in building this place, right? And one was that I wanted the artists to be able to monetize their talent. They can't continue to create art if they don't make any money. And that's a big problem. And so we created a model which allows the filmmaker or the artist, we have music artists as well, because as you know, or I don't know if people know, but when music artists perform, a lot of times they have to pay anywhere from $150 to $300 to sing, to give away their talent. And some promoter and other people take most of the money. In some cases, they're required to sell tickets to be able to sing. Here, they can do their own show, they control the ticket sales, and they can make money. So we charge $350 for the people to rent the theater. It's got 70 seats. They can charge whatever they want. So, you know, for somebody doing a 4-day theater run or a 1-week run or even a 1-night show, if they're charging $20, they're going to make money, and they can duplicate that over X amount of days. So we also do a lot to promote. So we're a cafe as well. So we're open from 10 to 10. We're the only food for 10 blocks. So we get a lot of foot traffic. So that allows us, we have screens like this, so that allows us in the cafe to put up people's trailers and their posters. So if they can't fill the seats, we can help them with that by opening up the seats to the public. So they're almost guaranteed to make money if they screen a film at our location.
Great. Yeah, that's music to our ears. So, David, I want to talk to you about your work. You work with both digital and analog people. How is technology disrupting the industry as you're seeing it, as you're managing the talent?
Great question. So, for those of you who aren't as familiar with our organization, we are a labor union that represents people working in front of a camera, behind a microphone, in a variety of media. Our history goes back to the 1930s, starting with the Screen Actors Guild, and we've since then have started representing people on traditional radio, television, now digital media, digital advertising, virtual reality, video games, and we like to think of ourselves as helping working people make a living in the gig economy for 80 years now. And so the nature of our work means that we are representing some of the most successful people in the world who are household names, and also we are representing some of the most taken advantage of people in this country. And the digital revolution that we've seen the last 10, 20 years has had a lot of upsides for our members who work in front of a camera or behind a microphone, and it's had a lot of drawbacks. The upside is there is a lot more work going on now. The old model was there was a finite number of theaters, there was a finite number of TV channels, and there was only so much content being produced. Now, shelf space is not an issue, so there's hundreds and hundreds of programs being produced. There's short format, long format, niche audience music being produced. So it is much easier to get content in whatever form in front of an audience that values it. The challenge that we're facing is that those audience sizes aren't necessarily as big as they were in the past. So when you had 4 broadcast networks or a handful of linear radio stations, you had some sense of what the audience is. Now we have content that is very valued, but maybe by a smaller segment, and the economics of it aren't necessarily big budget, blockbuster economics. So the challenge that I and my organization face is finding ways to make sure that people working in this space get paid fairly, and capture the appropriate value that they are creating. And the challenge is that this is changing day by day.
Right, and are you finding that over time, I don't know how long you've been in the business, but are you finding with the rise of technology industries that the artists and the creators have less leverage because the technology companies are growing bigger?
Yes, absolutely. And the technology companies are, the competition is a big factor. So some ways that it helps our most successful members is when you have Netflix and Amazon bidding against each other to get a top tier star or a top tier producer. That can lead to a lot of value. But at the same time, you have these huge tech companies that own tiny little subsidiary companies that are looking to hire some people, and they are using competition to make talent compete against one another. And so you have this little subsidiary company that is ultimately owned by Netflix, and they're saying, well, we'll cast you in this job, but we're going to pay you $100 for it. And if you don't take it, we're going to go to the next person in line. And the people who are competing for that work don't always know that that little company is owned by that huge corporation. And it's hard for us as an organization to keep track of. It's very hard for individual talent to keep track of.
So what specific, I guess, tangible, because, hey, I think we'd all love to be in a bidding war with Netflix and Amazon for our content, but a lot of us are startups and smaller. What specific advice, tangible, would you give to people in the room in terms of how to protect, how to empower ourselves, how to get, basically the value that we're creating in our content, how do we get that compensated for?
Sure. Well, I would say, I'll 2 things. One, if you can, join a labor union. If the nature of your work is something that is covered by SAG-AFTRA or the Directors Guild or the Writers Guild, join the union, because it makes it a lot easier when you're negotiating to say, I'd love to take that job for that amount, but my union rules don't allow me to, and it provides some bargaining leverage. If the nature of your work doesn't allow you to join a labor union, I'd say the important thing is to do your homework when it comes to what value you are ultimately providing. So if you are, let's say, creating branded entertainment that is selling something for a multi-billion-dollar company, take a little bit of time, run the numbers, look at your reach. If it's based on your social media followers, think critically about how the entity that you're selling your content to is going to be able to capitalize on this. And then the other piece of doing your homework is evaluating who your competition is. And if the next best alternative to you is someone or something that is, just as expensive, that can inform your bargaining strategy. But if you're negotiating and the next best, or the next best option for whoever you're selling it to, can get something for $100, that's something that you should be aware of as well. I'd say just take a little bit of time to do your homework as to your competition and to the true nature of the value you're providing.
All right, thank you, David. Alex, I want to turn to you. I'm going to ask you, your career is almost in two parts. Your first part, before you were able to sell your business, I want to talk about that a little bit, just because there are a lot of people who are still early stage or developing the business. What made you have the golden touch for your brand? What do you think you did that was able to really strike a nerve to reach so many people?
Yeah, so to give you guys a little context, in 2014, I started an Instagram account that went viral called Boss Babe. Did we say that yet?
I mentioned it, yes.
Okay. And so I think there were two key elements to why I think it worked. And those two things are timing and identity. So there was a trend happening in late 2013 and 2014 where millennial women were starting to come out of college or, just in that stage of life figuring out what they wanted to do. And many of people from this generation felt frustrated about how they were going to enter the job market and also felt a particular type of entitlement over their aesthetic and not feeling the need to sacrifice how they express themselves, their femininity, or just how, in general, how they express themselves for how they perform in the economy and how they provide professional services. So this trend was happening, and I've been a lifelong internet user. My dad is in tech, and so I had computers in my house since I was 2 years old in the 90s. And so I just felt like, oh, this is gonna be a big thing. I didn't know it was gonna be successful necessarily, but I just felt like it was a thing. And so what ended up happening is I posted these sort of motivational, snarky, funny quotes about this identity, this perspective of that millennial woman, and it resonated with so many people, and they shared it, and that's what created, I think, the viral effect, those two things.
So knowing the timing and really getting a voice in some respects.
Right, and I think for people who are trying to figure out when it is the right time to hop on a trend, it's when there is no data. I feel like now I'm seeing a lot of sort of millennial pink empowerment brands being funded, and that's because there's all this data now that has been provided through brands like what I've built and other companies that prove that this is a robust market and industry. And it's technology, so when you're trying to catch the trend, there's not going to be any, if it's the beginning, that means there's no trace of it.
Well, I guess piggybacking off what David said about understanding your competition, because what you're saying is you really blazed a trail where there wasn't anybody currently, but there were some other brands. How did you think about competition?
My competition were like masculine focused brands. So it was a motivational Instagram account. And at the time, the only other motivational accounts had Ferraris and lions on them. And I put lipstick and made them pink. And so, the women who identified with that wanted to decorate their feeds with that type of content. So my competition wasn't, today it looks completely different. Yeah.
Interesting. No, it's. I think it's very helpful. I hope our audience is finding it helpful. So I want to talk more about what you're doing now and your research and your book. If you could tell our audience a bit about your book, and then what are some of the takeaways that you're hoping to give to the world about how technology is affecting our lives, how it affects our authentic relationships with each other.
Yeah. So my book is called Resonate, and it's basically breaking down how I believe information spreads through human beings organically. So it doesn't factor in sort of technical algorithms, because I really believe that in building my brand and working with other brands, so many of them get lost in trying to hack a very technical, computerized method of connecting to people, and I find that to be inefficient. What the book focuses on is how humans feel, why they feel the need to share certain information, because I believe the strongest algorithm is the word of mouth, because you're building it on people's trust and relationships with each other. That's what the book is about. And right now, my main focus, and so yeah, I'm not working on my first company anymore. I'm just talking and writing about media ecology, specifically internet ecology, which is the study of how the internet is changing our environment, which is changing our behavior. So just been trying to talk more about how particularly the millennial generation has been dealing with certain threats to art, intellectualism, and quality of human relationships because of modern technology.
So what's the answer?
I think the answer is awareness. I think we have a lot of blind technophiles in the tech world, and just in general, I think our culture awards us for just thinking if it's new, it must be better, or if it's faster, it must be better. And I think we're getting to a point now where we know that that can't be the case, because my generation is dealing with severe communication problems, and we're using outdated methods of social platforms to build intimate relationships, and it's ripping at the seams. So
You're wise beyond your years. So Chirag, I'll turn to you. So tell us about your business. What was the inspiration behind it? How did you carve a niche that wasn't being served? And how do you use technology to interact with your customers?
Like Alex, it just kind of happened because I own a real estate company as well. And one day I was sitting in front of a computer, and I have worked with a lot of millennial clients moving from the city, and they're more concerned with knowing that they're actually going to have a life, and living in Westchester's not like living in the boondocks. So I go and look for different things. I had 12 windows open, and I said, really, this doesn't make sense. There should be a better way. So I made two social media pages, a Facebook and Instagram page, called it Lifestyle Westchester. People say I'm good at talking and in front of cameras, so I hired a film team from California. So if you're not going to do it right, you shouldn't do it at all. And I started walking into businesses where I knew people, and I said, hey, do you mind if I make a video? And they said, what do you mean? I said, a video. I want to talk about your business and living in the community. So the first video had 5,000 views, the next one had 10, then the third one had 50,000 views, and then all of a sudden, all these people want to be part of it. So as this grew, we started using a platform because I believe in non-for-profit and giving back. And it's hard to do that when you don't have something at scale. So we built it. So this just continued to evolve. And really all it is, it's really simply telling the story of what it's like to live in a community. And we connect people, communities, and we found the 3 areas people look for in life are explore, like what's in the community, experience, what experience they could have, and dining, because who doesn't love food?
I'm with you, although I don't know how to cook. So macaroni and cheese, baby. So you just said nonprofit. So your media company is nonprofit?
No, we are a for-profit company, but we partner with non-for-profit. So I found working on boards always was the most effective way of doing things. So we use our media company to partner with non-for-profits and help bring them awareness and tell their stories and stuff like that. So it's been a way that we've been very slow in terms of monetizing what everyone wants to know. I believe in patience and not overselling. So a lot of this has been 18 months of just building a good content, building a loyal audience, and being patient. So at the end of the year, we're actually going to roll out a subscription-based model, which is completely digital, which is consumer-based, based on education and advertorials. So it's going to be a little different than the traditional ad model where they're selling little boxes hoping people click on them, but we want to just give the boxes away for free where people can provide good content and our place continues to be a resource of value.
Well, I think subscriber model is where a lot of media companies are definitely heading toward to cross that Rubicon. So you'll have to come back next year and tell us how that went for you, because so what made you, did you do research to say, like, you have a lot of confidence then? Like, what made you have the confidence to say, someone's going to pay for this, and they're going to subscribe?
Well, having a real estate background, you get sold stuff every single day, and I realized the essence of what it's like to be a consumer. So I grew up in a mom and pop. My parents owned a local stationery store that sold pens, pencils, and notebooks. And if my parents had to pay $1,000 for a little box and pray to God that somebody clicked it, you had to sell a lot of pencils to make your money back. So I'm thinking about the consumer in mind and how can they do the same thing. It's about building relationships, earning trust, and you don't know what's going to happen that's going to be a trigger event that's going to make somebody switch carriers or want to buy something. So you need to be in front. Like, people are empowered by cell phones today. So information is readily available. So you have to make yourself an expert online. And people, no one likes to be sold, but I don't know one person that doesn't like to go out and buy stuff.
And in terms of, again, the monetizing, because I think that's of interest to a lot of folks in the audience. So you have a real estate business. That's the feedback loop for you? So is that basically in some ways subsidizing your media company?
Yeah, well, I never started out to build a media company. So I don't think when you started, did you plan on making this into what it was? No, it just kind of, someone asked me how'd this all happen. It kind of just happened by accident, to be honest. We saw a need that there was no information. We started filling it using social media and video. We don't sell sponsored posts on our Instagram feed or anything like that. We only put stuff that we believe in and we think are good for people. So it's allowed us to organically grow that now we're at a point where we can monetize it. But I've gotten real estate clients, I've gotten relationships, I've ended up in county government boards and stuff, and it's allowed me to really grow my personal brand in 18 months really quickly.
So what advice do you have to close the deal? How do you get it over the finish line to get that account?
Well, I would say just come from a point of contribution, like all of us are small business owners, entrepreneurs, and just think about what it feels like to buy something that doesn't work, or you're spending your money and you have a family and you're putting an ad in, like, let's say, a big magazine. You're literally sitting there praying that someone will do it. So I think affordability is important. I think understanding, giving, over-delivering value in the beginning is important, and then you can grow from there. But it just comes down to, look, everyone needs something and everyone needs a digital voice. We offer people that we could do it for them. We offer consulting where we could teach them how to do it. And for us, it comes down to stop leasing the ads and buy the media once, and then you own it. We deliver the service, we advertise on our platform, and then we give it to them. So one of my partners is not a media company, a film company. So my partner generally shoots Fortune 100 films, but we've made it affordable for everybody. So the quality of our content's very high, too.
Great. And one last question for you about, you mentioned Westchester County, that a lot of younger people leaving the city think that it's the boondocks, and you're there to tell them that it's not. When I think of Westchester County, I just think older. So what is it like intergenerationally working with, maybe an older generation, and maybe that's why they want to hire you or to advertise with you, because they aren't plugged into the digital space. How do you navigate that kind of intergenerational relationship?
Well, I think the older generation needs to just understand that Instagram is hitting a plus button, it's a picture. Facebook is a little more personal and intimate, where you share a little bit more of what you are. It's simplifying it for them. For the younger generation, it's showing them that, look, like, if you walk to a coffee shop, this is where your coffee shop, this is how your life happens. Here are the playgrounds, here are the parks, here are like the street fairs, here are the farmers markets, and just understanding what each person's journey is and being able to speak to that is what's really been able to us to hit all different markets.
Excellent. Thank you, Chirag. So I think we've got a few minutes for questions. What's the situation with the mic? Do they come up or they just shout it out? Oh, we've got a mic runner? Great. Okay, raise your hand if you got a question. Got one over here at the red scarf? She's got it right here at the red scarf.
You mentioned your peers are having a problem with communication.
Yes, that needs to be on the microphone. Yes, continue.
Yes, and I have a 23-year-old, but just being in the community and navigating, I actually saw that coming to be quite some time ago in
Right.
how I was studying sort of the social media platforms and how the algorithm was really kind of sticking people in a box
Yeah.
and not able to navigate outside that box, as well as trying to have an intergenerational connection.
Right.
Twofold, what was that sort of aha moment that showed you that this was beginning to be a problem, and what do you perceive will be some of the fixes for that? Thank you.
Yeah, a beautiful question. Thank you so much. I think what started to give me the awareness was building this business and seeing how much the demand was about how to decorate people's, what I call people's virtual reality. So what my generation, my whole theory is that our primary reality is virtual reality. What happens online seems to be more important than what happens in physical reality. So much of our demand was about how to help people, and this is not just in the market I was in, this is across the millennial market in general, how to help people look and feel more secure about themselves online. And so once I started to see that fragmentation, I was like, wait, what's happening here? And so I started to pay more attention to why and how Facebook grew. And when I say Facebook, I also mean Instagram. And I think we have to be conscious about how the way these platforms are designed will dictate our behavior. And the way that these platforms were designed, Facebook in particular was started in 2004 for desktop computers, and that's when the internet was something you logged on to separately. It wasn't a mobile sort of service. And now that it's become mobile, we're using what I believe to be an outdated platform in this mobile world. We're connected to that now and here. So because it's moving so fast, my generation probably, if there's any millennials in here, we haven't taken a breath since MySpace. We've just gone from platform to platform to platform. And the other thing I always say is that when we got into the internet as kids, it was something everyone, including ourselves, thought we would be growing out of, but we grew into it. And we didn't know that. I don't think anyone really realized that's what the situation was going to be. As far as fixes, I really do think this is going to be something that has to happen on an individual basis. I don't think it's going to be an aha moment for the world. I think what I'm trying to do is just bring awareness and objective awareness too. I really try hard not to shame, because there is addiction involved. There is a lot of shame involved, and I don't want to emphasize that or perpetuate it. I think it's just important that we are comfortable enough to say, yeah, I'm addicted. What do I do now? How do I deal with this? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Question? All right.
Hi, my name is Moikansi Kama. Hey, Emelyn. I run Image Nation. We're an independent film organization here in Harlem, and we show independent films in the parks and in a gallery on 7th Avenue. And we're really looking at how we develop our online audience. And so in doing research, I read that 1,000 hits a month is good for a regular business. 2,500 means you're doing pretty well. But then there are businesses like OMG that are getting 20 million a month. And so I'm wondering, what does it take, and it is kind of a myth out there that you can just grow your audience organically. And so I'm wondering, what does it take to level up? What does it take to get to a point where you're getting massive amounts of hits each month? What type of advertising do you have to put into that? Or is there really a place where you can say, all right, where there's a benchmark where this is as far as you can go organically, and then you're going to have to invest a certain amount into online advertising? And what do those spends look like?
Who wants to take that? Chirag?
If you advertise on Facebook, the shorter the video it is, so if you say you're doing 15-second segments of some of the stuff that you're promoting, that'll cost you 2 to 3 cents a view. So it's very economical to advertise this, but in terms of organic growth versus paid growth, Facebook and a lot of these things, if you look at the reach thing, it's all pay to play. So you're going to have to invest some money, but the more shares and likes and comments it gets, the more these platforms will organically push it out. So you can organically grow. It's just a matter of getting kind of like that. It's like going down a hill. You just kind of need that first little push to get rolling, and then it'll go. So if you track it, you could see based on different videos and different stuff what happens. If you do a 15-second video and you want it to go 10,000 times, take 3 cents and divide it by 10,000, and that's how much you have to spend to get that many views.
Or you could connect with David's clients, because just stepping in, Clayton mentioned my company, Bold. We work a lot with influencers, and we're a news company. We get newsmakers to come on our shows, and that's where we see the biggest spike. We get a newsmaker on, we'll get 100,000 views in one episode because we've built that relationship. They don't get paid because we're a news company, so it's in their interest because they have a book to promote. Really finding where that they have an interest in what was mentioned, what's in it for them. So if you can find a partner who would want to share your brand because there's an advantage for them, that we've been able to grow our audience virally that way. And Emelyn, you wanted to hop in?
I have been growing my audience for about 8 years. So the first probably spike I saw was when I created 12 Steps to Recovery, which was a web series that got 7 million views. And then I started to give what I call added value. So I became a student of filmmaking and producing, and I shared that information for free constantly, daily. The people who didn't want to do the work, I was doing the work and giving it to them for free. And then I started a film festival, so we were getting hundreds of submissions every year, and we're 6 years old. So that gave me a huge mailing list of people who do what I do, and that became my audience. So by the time I built the theater, I have a massive mailing list of people who need what I'm providing. So some of it is time, and it's also just kind of giving value, providing something that people need. And that was a huge investment of my time, but it was also an investment in myself in that I was learning and just sharing what I was learning because it didn't cost me anything to tell somebody how to get funding or the best way to distribute your film. So. Patience, yes, patience.
I was going to add one thing too. If you, I would really go back to the drawing board because you're saying I just want 10,000 hits. You have to ask yourself what's going to happen when you get 10,000 hits and no one buys, because that happens. Sometimes I think we put too much expectation on the view count, and it needs to be more about, okay, if I show this to 10 people, will at least one of them share or buy this information? Because once you get that, then the goal doesn't have to be 10K hits. You can probably reach a profit goal from having 5,000 views if you're going off of that strategy.
Yep. Great points. Do we have time for one more question? One more? Do we have Mike? One more question here in the front.
Here?
Sure. Or her.
Which one?
Thank you. You're a gentleman. Thanks. My question is about, and actually maybe directed to David, just about the changing labor models in this, all these activities we're talking about that, and we well know about the gig economy and other industries, but how easy it is to make a living or not, being unionized or not, and the fact that especially smaller digital properties or smaller businesses may not be able to hire people full-time, give them benefits. So if you could talk about how that's changing and what the implications are for creating great content. Thank you.
It's a great question. I could talk about it for hours, but I'll just talk about it for a minute. What we've been seeing a lot of in the last few years is very much a change in the mindset of the people doing the kind of work that we traditionally represent. So in the old model, if you wanted to be on TV, you trained to be an actor, you auditioned, and you hoped you got a paying job as an actor. Now it's very much more of an entrepreneurial career. We see this definitely with actor producers, with recording artists who are producing themselves. And our organization has traditionally represented workers against, negotiating against studios, networks, advertising agencies, and there was a clear distinction between the employer and the employee. Now that is increasingly blurring, and so we're trying to react in real time to our members' needs, and we have, our members are coming to us and saying, it's not that I want to go take this job and get paid by the producer this amount. It's I want to go create this with a few of my friends, and I want to make sure that I'm doing it consistent with the union rules. And we, in real time, are figuring out, what's the flexibility? How do we allow our members to take their career into their own hands and create content, create branding, but provide the protections so that when either their content or their branded messages get legs and is ultimately seen by 5 million people somehow, maybe that's not the typical experience, but when that happens, we want to make sure that there is some entity that we can make sure pays them. So we're trying to respond to that in real time, and it's really our members who are coming to us saying, we want to figure out ways to make this work. And so, what I would say to anyone in this room who is, looking to hire on-camera talent or voice talent, and you think that union rates are prohibitive, I would say, talk to the union. If there are members interested in doing this kind of work, we work with producers, traditional employers, new kinds of employers, as well as aspiring professionals to try to find ways to make that work.
All right. Well, thanks so much to our great panel, to Emelyn, to Alex, to Chirag, and David. Let's give them all a hand.
Thank you.
That does it for us. I'll give it up to Clayton.
Thank you, Carrie, and thanks to all of the look at the selfies going off here now. I like that. Let's get that. Let's get that. And we're gonna